Welcome to this new Addon Spotlight. In this Addon Spotlight we're gonna look at the top 5 busiest airports in France. On number 5 there's Toulouse Blagnac, which is probably known, or most known, due to the fact that that's the home base of Airbus. Right, so we're also using the Airbus as parking spot. The runways are, say, parallel to each other, right? You've got a runway which is here, which is a really long one, and then you've got a shorter one here. So if we look the other end, you can also see it, right? This one is definitely the longest one. On this side of the runway, there are several smaller buildings and also several hangars. I do expect that this is, let's say, the part where also the tests are being performed using the new Airbus airplanes. So let's have a look at that. So let's increase the speed a bit. You can see that these parking spots are pretty big, but it's, I would say, really silent at the airport. There are also a lot of, I would say, large halls, maybe for cargo processing, but probably also for Airbus, I would say, building their airports or preparing their aircrafts to be tested. Going a little bit outside of the, let's say, airport zone, you can see that there are some modifications made here. So let's go to it. Right, you can see that there are massive buildings here. There are no logos on it, right? So I can't confirm it's from Airbus, but I do expect it. Here's also one big hall, which I also do expect to be from Airbus, or because Airbus has its headquarters in Toulouse, right? Also a lot of factories around the airport, because this is where the big airplanes are, let's say, assembled. It's probably also the hangar for the Beluga, right? That's the large aircraft carrier from Airbus. That one will also probably be parked here, or maybe it's over there, right? This is a pretty big hall, as you can see. So going to the other part of the aircraft, or airport, I should say, sorry. So let's have a look here. You can see a lot of small buildings, bigger buildings, a lot of halls. And if we would continue our trip a little bit faster, let's increase the drone speed a little bit more. We can see some, I would say, special, let's say, spaces here, right? So it looks like this is kind of a private part from the airport. So if you're, I would say, more familiar with the airport, then let me know if that's indeed a correct assumption. This is not the main terminal, right? Because the main terminal is at the other end of the airport, and this looks to be kind of a private airport or private space. If you look at this, I would say these type of buildings. Then over here we've got another large set of both buildings and factories. Again, I do expect that those are from Airbus. And on this end also several buildings. You can see that there's a lot of detail being added, right? A lot of buildings being added as part of this community add-on. This because this is a community add-on where they add a lot of detail around the airport by adding all kind of building types to it. But also if you look at all the, let's say, signatures and all the lines on the taxiways, these are updated and now look, I would say, pretty cool compared to the default scenery. So let's go to the main part of the airport, right? So here we come to the traffic tower. It's over here, right? Including some other buildings. So it looks almost like small offices, which are here. Then here we've got the fire station with a lot of fire trucks standing outside. And then we're arriving at the main terminal. Oh, wrong button. The main terminal has several jetways, as you can see. Jetways are the default jetways which are part of Flight Simulator. Those are not the enhanced jetways where you can see the, I would say, the signs, the taxi signs, right, which help you taxiing to the spot. These are the default ones. Some assistant trucks standing over here. Continuing our trip, some more jetways. You can see it's a pretty large airport, right, as you can see. So this is the, let's say, whoa, the other buildings, and then we will come at the parking spots where probably the smaller aircrafts are being parked. Then this looks like to be the baggage hall, right, where they, because you can see a lot of containers here. Also some, I'd say, traffic ports here. So this is for security to enter the airport or to leave the airport, of course. On this side of the airport there are buildings, and I do expect that this is one of the parking spots. Maybe this is another one. This is also the entry point, right, for arrivals and departures, where you can enter. It's a little bit unclear, to be honest, but I do expect it somewhere here. All the buildings are interconnected to each other, right? So there's say a large connection from, I would say, the right side to completely to the left side. Going a little bit further on the other side, again, a lot of buildings are have been added to the spot, or to the add-on, I should say. A lot of hangars have been added, a lot of probably maintenance buildings have been added. So really cool to see that they revamped this airport. This looks like to be a runway for a grass runway, but it's a really short one, so maybe for really small aircrafts. Of course, the two larger ones, right, are here, and probably are used also for testing the new aircrafts from Airbus. So this is the airport, which is on spot number 5. Let's see what's on spot number 4. On spot number 4, we've got another community add-on, and that's Lyon Airport. So this is the airport, as you can see. So we're flying with the drone. So let's first focus on the side parts, where we can see a lot of buildings have been added, including some, I would say, maintenance ground. So maybe they're building something here. I'm not sure about that. The airport has 2 runways, right? Runway 35 left and right, and they have, I would say, probably it's say smaller part of the airport where you can see a lot of aircrafts are being parked. As far as I found out, this is all, I would say, static scenery, right? You can see a lot of smaller aircrafts, but also a jet which has been parked here. Nice thing is that they added a lot of signs and also improved the taxi, let's say, taxi signs, but also the taxiways and also the runways, because you can see that they are definitely from a good quality. On that part of the airport, right on the right side, there's nothing new, but if we would follow the taxiway and would go back to the main terminal building, then you can see a lot of jetways. Those are the jetways which are the default ones from Flight Simulator. You can also see a nice, let's say, probably terminal building with kind of solar panels on it, so a lot of detail. This part is, normally you would see stripes, right? But this is, I would say, completely marked red, which means that you shouldn't go into that, let's say, that section of the, let's say, parking spot, probably because the jetway is driving on that part. So a little bit weird piece where it drives into here, but maybe this is the route which the baggage cars are taking, right, when delivering baggage, or maybe there's some other maintenance building there. Going further to the other end of the airport, you can see that there's a lot of detail being here, right? You can see the concrete has been, let's say, nicely modeled, but also the, I would say, jetways are looking pretty nice. Terminal buildings, again, those, I would say, the circle on that end is connected to the other parts of the airport, which will bring you to the center of the airport. I think the modeling is, I would say, done nicely, right? Some of the things are, I would say, it looks like that they're unfinished, or maybe this is normal, but hopefully they will fix it in the future. If we go far enough to the right side, we will end up at the traffic tower and also the, I would say, smaller terminal buildings without the jetways. So probably you need to enter using the stairs or something, or the bus maybe. So this is the traffic tower, right? So again, nicely modeled, but you can see that they blinded all the windows, so you can't look inside of it. So probably there's also nothing inside of the traffic tower. Here we'll end up at some lake, some smaller buildings. Maybe this is the fire. Yeah, it could be fire trucks. No, not fire trucks. So again, this is a smaller part, right? No jetways in here, so you can simply park your aircraft here and get your passengers loaded, unloaded. The thing which I'm missing is, I would say, really the fences, because I can't imagine that this part of the airport is directly connected to this part, and also the ring fencing, I would say, around the airport is not in place. But that's probably some work to do, right? So this is also what I expected, right? You can look straight to the buildings. That's what you see with most add-ons, right? So I'm not going to make a huge issue out of that. The thing which I need to remind you is that there's another great add-on, and that is the one which at this nice train station, right? It's the Lyon train station, which is being added. It's a different add-on, right? So you need to install 2 add-ons if you want to have both of them. And while moving away from that airport, right? So let's have a look at it. Maybe we can look inside it. Also not a lot, right? So it's really the external view which has been modeled, but not really the inside. So you can't see the rail tracks, etc. But again, the view is, I would say, really nice, right? So it really, I would say, completes the airport. Here you can see that it's been modeled by someone who's, I would say, not the same developer, because the coloring here from this piece connected to the coloring of the building, or the terminal building, I'd say is a bit weird, right? This looks pretty realistic. This sometimes looks too equal, right? The coloring is too equal, which makes it sometimes look a little bit unrealistic, but hey, maybe that's, I would say, how it really is. But I prefer to have, I would say, those kind of nice details like you have here on the roof of the terminal building. Here we've got another building. Probably this is one of the hotels, because most airports have hotels around it. Sometimes you can recognize it because there are signs of the hotel brand, but in this case it's not, unfortunately. So this is the airport which is on spot number 4. Let's see what's on spot number 3. Welcome to Nice Côte d'Azur Airport, which is the airport which is on spot number 3. This one doesn't have a community add-on, and to be honest, it also doesn't really need it because it already looks fantastic. Nice was one of those cities which were part of one of the world updates where they completely revamped the city itself, right? Also the airport, as well, I'd say this is one of the most impressive airports which there is. That's probably also why there are multiple missions for it. So let's go down with our drone and let's have a look. You can see that the airport is divided in multiple terminals, right? You've got this terminal building. You can see that it's not connected to the one which is over here, right? This looks like to be the main terminal building. So here's our Airbus A320. You can see that there are a lot of details here, like all these fences. They're nicely modeled. Then you can see all the trucks here, which are helping, right, delivering the baggage. On the other end of the airport, right, I need to zoom out. We've got the buses, and those buses will take passengers to the airport itself. But the cool thing about this one is that if you look at this part, right, they even, I would say, added stuff here, including some nice, I would say, details about, okay, hey, the buses, some, say, advertising about the city itself, clear signs where the terminal access points are, although this looks pretty hard to access it from this way. Some signs here are from watchmakers. Departures, right, including the stairs. And you can walk to the tunnel. Up to here, right, then the tunnel ends. So if you would walk the other way, then you will hit the same issue because there's no connection here to the tunnel, right? Although it's modeled, I'm going too far. Although it's modeled here, you can walk straight to it. It's there. There's no real physical connection. This part of the airport, right, is probably either it's arrival or departure, and then if we go one level lower, we can have the same. So you can see that they spend some time on even spending some time on improving the interior, although there are no, I'd say, seats or I'd say check-ins. The roof of the airport also nicely modeled, right? A lot of detail has been spent there. And here we see the jetways, which are the default jetways from a flight simulator itself. Some of the jetways look a little bit weird, so probably you need to access the aircraft using the stairs, which are standing over there. And this is where we also hit the traffic tower. So traffic tower also again nicely modeled from the outside, right? Even if you come very close, you can see a lot of detail here, which is really cool. So let's go upside, up to the traffic tower, and even in the traffic tower you can see nice signs about the departures. You can't read it completely, and also let's say the escalator or the elevator which brings you down. So a lot of cool details. The other thing which I really like are the details here on the floor, right? So you can see, okay, hey, where are the parking spots? Where are the gates? So it makes it navigation easy. If we continue our trip to this side of the airport, you can see that there are a lot of parking spots here, even no entries. Those are used by smaller aircrafts, like the ones which we see here. And you can even see the nice road, right, which is, I would say, in parallel of the runway. And then we have a terminal a hangar here, probably maintenance hangar or something. So then we've got the runway itself, right? And the runway itself will bring us eventually, if we speed up the process. You can see that this one is pretty heavy for the graphic card, right? It sometimes needs to reload stuff. And you can also see that it's less smoother than I would say you might expect. But we need to use it to come to this part of the airport. And this part has multiple maintenance hangars, right? It's Gamma Aviation. Then we've got a small hangar here. And then we've got the other terminal building here, right? So including the, I would say, marks on the floor where you can park, which parts you shouldn't access. And I would say this part is also nicely modeled, right? It looks really, really cool. That one is connected to this terminal, right? So it looks like this is Terminal 2, where also the one of the Airbuses is parked. And again here, all the details like the cooling installations, the roof is really nicely modeled. Let's have a look if we can go inside. Well, inside it looks a little bit different. There are some details, right? Here's a nice door. On this end you won't see much. You can see probably it's there. Normally there's a level here, right? So there's one level for departures, one level for arrival. And you can see the, I would say, different points which they added here for accessing the airport, right? Taxis is over here. Departures, arrivals are here. So really nicely modeled, right? So you can even see almost the sign of this car. And if we would go further away, you can see some other parking spots here. So they spent a lot of time, say, modeling this airport. So that's why it's probably so detailed. The last piece we're going to visit is the fire station, which is over here, which can be clearly recognized because it's completely red. And some fire trucks standing in front of it. So again, this airport doesn't have, I would say, community add-on because it's already modeled really nicely as part of both the default flight simulator installation and the world updates which have been released. This was the airport which was on spot number 3. Let's see what's on spot number 2. On spot number 2, there's another community built airport, which is Paris Orly. I would say from a higher distance it looks really nice, but to be honest, yeah, you might want to consider to use the default airport, which is part of Flight Simulator, and you will show why in a few seconds. So the first thing is that you can see this, I would say the runways and the taxi spaces are looking a little bit weird using this community add-on. There's a different one which is part, which is based on Google Maps. I'm not sure if that one is more accurate, but maybe you should say, okay, hey, let's leave it with the default. This airport is pretty big. There's 2 runways. One over here, right? The other one is over there where we can see it. A lot of buildings. 1 traffic tower, which is in the center of the airport. And probably an old one over here. And then we can look at the terminal buildings, and there are a lot of terminal buildings, also really big ones. So let's have a look. So we're gonna zoom down, and this is what I meant, right? You can see that there's a lot of, let's say, well, not mean or I'd say rough, but it looks like there's a lot of mess in this piece, so it does not look really realistic, to be honest. So you might want to, well, depending on how much you like detail, right? If you look from this level or this altitude, it looks pretty cool. But if you go close, it looks, I would say, there's a lot of room for improvement. Again, there's also a Google Maps version. Maybe that one looks better, but this one I would say definitely requires some more attention. Here you can see a lot of other jetways, and the thing about this one, this airport, is probably due to this add-on, the jetways will not work because they're not modeled correctly. So going to the other side of the airport, we can see more jetways and more airplanes, but here you can already also see some other issues, right? Aircrafts in the ground. Well, even my own aircraft is in the ground. Press the wrong button sometimes, right? So this add-on, maybe you should skip it. Right, that's my personal opinion. I'm really looking forward to your feedback about, okay, hey, did you find another one which is better for Paris Orly? But I think this one is, let's say, I wouldn't recommend to use it, to be honest. If we go higher in the air, again, it looks perfect. It looks really nice, right? If we look from this side, it looks really nice, but if you come in closer, it doesn't look as nice as it should be. So here ends this review of the airport, which is on spot number 2. Let's see what's on spot number 1. And the airport, which is on spot number 1, probably doesn't surprise you. It's Paris-Charles de Gaulle, right? It's one of those airports where you can really get lost. If you look around you, you can see our airport everywhere. The airport itself has 4 runways. There's no community add-on for this airport. But to be honest, it already looks great using the default content of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So let's start with a review of the terminals, right? So the aircraft is parked here, right? So we can have a look at this part. This part is probably the cargo part, right? You can see that there are a lot of, I would say, cars which are used for cargo, and you can see a lot of doors which look to be the cargo part of the airport. If we would look after that, we can see a lot of holes here. I'm not sure what's happening there, right? Maybe it's for storage. It looks like, because that would make most sense, because it's really close to the cargo hole. And if we would look over to this spot, we can see a lot of trucks being parked here. Those are random trucks. Right, so this, I would say, kind of confirms already that this is the cargo part, including the part here, because the cargo part is pretty big, right? If we continue this, we can continue here also, because this also belongs to the cargo part of the airport. So it's a huge airport, both for passengers, but also for the cargos. On this part of the airport, we can see some, it looks like some maintenance buildings, some hangars, right? Maybe not even hangars, because this is, I would say, is a kind of a cover. But again, here are a lot of doors, so probably used for maintenance or something, or maybe storage of these nice cars, which will bring the baggage to the aircrafts, but also bringing cargo to the aircrafts. Continuing our trip, let's go a little bit further down the line. And that's a really long line, as you can see. We will arrive at the passenger part, right? So you can see we're flying over the airport using our drone. And then eventually we will arrive at this part. This part looks a little bit weird. It looks like this is a building which they're still, I would say, which is still under construction. But I'm not 100% sure about that. And then eventually we will end up at the terminals, and those are really looking really nice, right? Jetways are working, right? You can even move the jetways. Some support offices here, including some security checks to prevent that you can directly drive on the airport. This nice circle is connected to the main terminal building, which is over here, including several jetways. On this end, you can see some support buildings. The closer we come to the buildings, right, you can still see that it is nicely modeled still. And if we would go inside, you can even see that they spend some time there, but there's more work to do here. But that's, I would say, kind of expected. Continuing our trip, we will see again much more runways, and then eventually we will come up to a special part of the airport. It looks like there is some kind of underground which will allow you to access some of the parts of the airport which are at the other end. But it's a little bit hard to say, right? There's also a nice fence here, so it looks like this is a special part of the airport. Here we've got another building, right? So this is the, as a second terminal building, but it still is interconnected with the previous one. That's cool, right? And this is also where we find a nice tower. I'm not sure if it's a traffic tower. It looks like, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But it looks like that it is, and I would imagine that because it's it's really nice and big airport. You can see the support truck standing in here. Then this is where you need to check in, and then eventually you will be able to, I would say, go to the gates and board your aircrafts. You can see that in this part there are, I would say, both jetways here and over here. There sometimes are some errors, right? Like this one, this is not connected to the other one. Then here we find, again, more jetways. This building is connected to the main building over there, right? So you can see, or you can imagine, that's why I said, okay, hey, you can easily get lost. All those buildings are interconnected, so you can easily lose where you need to go to. And then we still have a part here, right, including a nice tower with also, again, a terminal building where you can access the aircrafts. On this end, right, if we would continue, you can see there's a nice way under it, which are used by cars. We will end up at, say, kind of, it looks like almost a private airport or private space, especially seeing these kind of things. But if someone knows it and can confirm it, that would be great. It looks like this is, say, kind of the special, well, the VIP airport. It doesn't look like for helicopters or something. Continuing our visit here, we can see a lot of undergrounds, let's say, tunnels, and a lot of support buildings on this end. Increase the speed a bit. And then jetways, right? A lot of jetways here, also pretty close to each other, to be honest. But again, nicely modeled. You can see all the details here of the terminal buildings. Then we will arrive here, and this is even cool, right? You can see that this glass reflects nicely if you would turn the camera also. So that's cool. So some support offices here, pretty close to the airport. There are no fences for some reason behind or between the airport and these offices. Probably it's for a valid reason. some tunnels here, which can be used by cars. And then we will arrive at the center part of the airport here, where you can see also another traffic tower, a lot of supporting buildings, and some offices like this one. Now you may think, okay, hey, is this the complete airport? Well, it isn't, because we skipped Terminal 1, which is over here. And Terminal 1 is, I would say, a little bit special one, as you can see, right? Because it also has some kind of supporting building. So I do expect, but I've never been there, that this, I would say, is a tunnel on the ground, and that you will, I would say, board the aircrafts here. You can also see another traffic tower here. So this, I would say, kind of a cool terminal. Normally you would expect that you would see, I would say, a tunnel, say from this building to here. But I do expect that these tunnels are, I would say, starting here and then interconnected via this connection to the, say, separate buildings over here. So it's surrounded by gates. Then here we have got the support buildings, right? The pushback trucks standing over here. Some highway, as it looks like. Yeah, a highway. So you need to taxi over the highways. Probably a pretty cool experience when doing that. And then here we are at the runways. And you can see the runways are nicely detailed. A lot of signs. Everything is in place, which you would expect. So runway 09 left, and here we've got another one, 09 right, and then again a lot of parking spots and buildings here. So this is really, I would say, probably one of the biggest airports which there is, at least in France. It probably is the biggest, and you can imagine why, right? If you look from here, you can see a lot of airport. You can see some green parts, but the most part of the screen is now airport, which you're seeing. So here ends this Addon Spotlight. In this Addon Spotlight, we looked at the top 5 busiest airports in France. Keep in mind that some of them are also available as community, right? That was Paris, Orly, which I would say might skip. We've got Lyon, that was a really nice one, and we've got Toulouse Blagnac, and especially those last two are ones you could consider using. Both Paris Charles de Gaulle and Nice are already modeled really nicely based on the default content of Flight Simulator 2020. Here ends this review. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.